As you learn about the narcissistic pattern, it's also wise to reflect on the much healthier alternatives. Now, below you're going to find a link to my new extensive course called Ready, Set, Connect. It addresses both the mindset and the skills involved in gratifying relationships, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. For any relationship to thrive, we need to have a certain amount of coordination or blending or harmony. In other words, we want to have a mutual regard and a mutual respect for one another, even as we bring our own individual ingredients to the table. I want you to think, when you consider the personality or the traits of a narcissist, does coordination come to the top of your mind in terms of how they like to approach life, or mutuality or harmonizing? I dare say that that's not part of the whole narcissistic pattern. There are times when narcissists can openly indicate that they almost have to be contrarian, if for no other reason than to prove I'm uniquely special. And so they can have this don't count on me, I'm going to be different kind of an attitude, even when it's not necessary. Now, let me put this in the context. There are times, and I know that many of you have had these experiences, where you're in a system where your individuality is squelched and you're told that you have to stay inside of an unreasonable agenda and you have to be everything that everybody else tells you to be. And so you want to be very different from that. That's okay. Not only is it okay, it can be necessary for you to say, I want to claim my freedom. I want to claim my sense of who I am and my individuality that goes along with it. That's not what I'm talking about, though, when I refer to as the contrarian narcissist. These individuals purposely show themselves to be different, even if it means that they have to step all over the needs and feelings and the legitimate standards and values of other individuals. In their pursuit of their own independence, they set aside any sense of responsibility to healthy norms, and they have a combative attitude. That's what I mean when I say that there's a contrarian attitude that they bring. To them, conformity is not just getting along with other individuals. Conformity means, no, I have to give up all my power and I have to give up all of my dominance, and I'm not about to do that. And so they think highly competitively, to the extent that they think, if you want to put me in that loser role, which is how they interpret coordination, you've got another thing coming to you. Narcissists operate with an undertow of unhealthy anger and a mistrust that's fully intact. They think to themselves, do you really believe that I'm going to fit into your system? You've got that wrong. I am the system. And so they operate with the notion that says nobody tells me what to do. So when you approach a narcissist with the notion that says, let's have blending, let's have mutuality, they're thinking, oh, so you want to control me, huh? I'm not going to let that happen. Or they see control coming from you that doesn't really exist. And sometimes we can even say that their attitude of don't pin me down can come from a reasonable source. But that reasonableness left the barn a long time ago, and all they can think of is, I just see people wanting to put me inside of a mold, and I'm not about to do that. And so their search for independence is an unhealthy kind of alternative to blending. In essence, they'll say, I'm going to show you who's in charge, and they mean it in a very invalidating way toward other individuals. Now, let's look into this whole contrarian style of narcissism that so many of these people get into and see if we can get an idea of what's really going on here. I want you to see if we can first begin to have an understanding of the difference between having skepticism versus cynicism. There are times when you need to have skepticism. And when we talk about reasonable skepticism, we're talking about weighing out claims and beliefs and opinions and standards that other people may have or requirements that may be there in pursuit of reason and knowledge and having a sense of well-being. In other words, skepticism ultimately leads to an open-minded weighing of the facts. It's like, I need to look at all sides of an equation before I make a commitment. That's a good thing. Cynicism, though, means that you have a built-in negativity, and you immediately, whenever you look at differences, you immediately assume what's wrong. And sometimes in cynicism, if you have to overlook truth in order to be your own separate person, like, yeah, I'm willing to do that because you see, I think people are bad, they're against me. And so the cynic has a built-in negativity that the skeptic doesn't necessarily share. Now, in addition, when we talk about the contrarian individual, we're talking about someone who's driven by self-interest only. Healthy individuals, when they want to have their sense of independence, they want to have a sense that says, I want to be my own separate person so that I can be more effective in my engagements with others. Whereas with narcissism fully intact, the contrarian person says, nope, it's all about me, baby, and I'm just going to do whatever me wants to do right now, and nobody's going to tell me anything different. In addition, the contrarian narcissist is driven by paranoia. When they hear of somebody saying, well, here's something that I think we need to do together, or here's some standards that we want to hold on to as a group, it's like, you're out to get me, aren't you? You're trying to fit me into a mold, aren't you? You're trying to change my mind, and you're trying to rid me of my uniqueness. And it's like, no, it's just called coordination. But they have such an abysmally low level of trust that in their contrarian mindset, it's like, I think you're lying to me. And so they actually project all of their discomfort onto you, and they assume that you have the competitive element that they actually are the ones that carry. And as a result, these contrarian narcissists fail to see the good in circumstances. They operate with what I refer to as assumed hostility. So if I go up to that narcissist and say, hey, I'd like to try to do things in this kind of fashion because I've done this before and it makes sense. In their assumed hostility, the narcissist can think, you're trying to make me look bad, aren't you? It's like, no, I promise I'm trying to do something good. But they already have a negativity bias built in when they try to engage with you. And another thing that we can say about the contrarian narcissist is even in their craving to be their own separate, free-spirited person, they're very caged in. It's kind of a contradiction. They're very closed-minded to the point of sometimes just being or carrying raw ignorance. The things that they want to do and how they want to prioritize, when you break it down, it's like, this makes no sense. It's like, well, it makes sense to me. Well, you and nobody else. And another interesting feature with the contrarian narcissist is that they tend to shun compassion and empathy and kindness, because you see that implies a type of connection to other people, and to them that means I'm having to be tied down and nobody's going to tie me down. And as a result, they don't want to be connected in a very tight heart way with other individuals, because it implies a certain amount of letting go of one's ego in the moment. And it's like, no, letting go of my ego, that's not something I do. And as a result, it's extremely common when you have this contrarian attitude that these narcissists can have, that a lot of self-destructive kind of patterns can come into play. I recall so well one woman whose theme song was, remember that song, all I want to do is have some fun. And it's like, that's all she wanted to do, party. And we're talking about 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way through to the point where she went through one relationship after another, was known as being a vixen, and just incredibly difficult and selfish, and died an early death that was partially caused by her own irresponsibility. I mean, it's awful when you see something like that happen. Or another way, when we talk about contrarianism, there was another man that it's kind of like, nobody tells me what to do. I must be the boss everywhere I go. I have to be in charge, to the extent that he just had a long wake of difficult relationships. That's what it leads to. That's what I mean when I say there's no sense of mutuality. And so even in their desire to be independent and free, they have this contradictory sense of stubbornness that's impossible to break through. They're prone towards being irrational, and they can think, well, if you're trying to bring me into some sort of reason, I'm thinking, well, whose reasoning is that? And so again, there's that sense of questioning. So you get to the point when you're engaging with these people and you're saying, I just want to coordinate. Finally, you just throw your hands up and say, well, never mind. These individuals who are committed, and I use that word deliberately, to their contrarian nature, guarantee that they will bring chaos to relationships. They bring division to relationships. They create relationship collapse. And ultimately, they bring their own personal ruin to them. So as we understand that there are some narcissistic individuals who don't want to be tied down, okay, I appreciate that part, but then they take it so much further with their entitlement and their selfishness and their raw attitude of privilege only, with no sense of responsibility to others. I think it's good for us to think, what's the better alternative? And now, I'm hoping that you and I, as Team Healthy, can decide, I do want to have a certain amount of self-advancement. I want to be true to me inside the context of cohesion with other individuals as much as common sense will allow. In other words, we need each other. Let's recognize that there's a healthy interdependence that can come into relationships. And then, in addition, let's see if we can distinguish the meaning of commitment versus blind obligation. I want to have my commitments. It doesn't mean I'm going to have blind loyalty to the point that I check my brain at the back door, but we can have a balance with respect to that. Hopefully also, instead of just being so independently driven, we can seek meaningful interactions, a coordination with other individuals, with connections. In other words, no man is an island, and we each need to have our own connections with each other so that we can better ourselves and one another. And we also want to have an openness to other people's preferences and their need for independence as well as our own, and we can have a sense of positive encouragement. I want to encourage you to be your own separate person just as I can, and in doing so, we have a cohesion. Contrarian narcissists, that is so far into them, they can't go there. They're highly selfish. For me, as far as it goes for Team Healthy, I'm thinking we want to have a sense of independence with a strong side dose of conscientiousness. That's the balance. Now, I hope that videos such as this can give you some good awareness of what you might be dealing with. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do so. I'm going to keep more videos coming toward you, and I want you to have a sense of knowledge. Knowledge is power. The more you understand what you're going through, then the more you can maintain your sense of steadiness in the right direction. Sometimes you have a need for therapy. And I know it can be so helpful when you have that therapist that can ask you questions and talk with you about ideas and concepts and know who you are and give you a sense of affirmation in that respect. If you have that need, below the video here, we have a link that will take you to my sponsor, betterhelp.com. There's a whole team of licensed professional therapists. Now, I'm a therapist myself, and obviously I'm retired from my therapy practice, but obviously I believe in the goodness of that. So it can be so helpful if you have somebody that can help you unpack all of this. In addition, I've put together courses, and these courses are very extensive. I put a lot of work into them. They each comprise at least 25 videos, and each video has handouts that go along with each video, and then guided questions. We have Ready, Set, Connect. We have This Is Me, about establishing boundaries. We have Free to Be. We have more that are on the way, new ones. So if that's something you would be interested in, we have those on our website, along with articles and my webinars, which are 90-minute presentations, very different, access to my podcast and books, plenty of resources. Okay, it's one thing to say, I want to be my own separate independent self. I think that's wonderful. It's another that says, I'm going to be so contrarian that I'm going to be beholden to nobody, and nobody tells me what to do, and they have that stubbornness, and then they go into self-destruction. Okay, that's where you're headed. I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon at all. I'm hoping you can be that person that says, I stand for balance, which means I want to have a steady life, and then ultimately it can lead you into your place of peace.